Never Learned from the School Book. If you are looking at me, it must be 7 p.m. Central, 8 Eastern, 6 Mountain, 5 Pacific, 2 p.m. out in Hawaii, 6 a.m. tomorrow morning out in Indonesia, and about 9 a.m. out in Australia. Welcome, everybody, to Stuff I Never Learned from the School Book. As I said, my name is Tom Springer. If this is your first time meeting me, welcome. I hope you enjoy the show. If you are a repeat offender, as there are quite a few now, which I appreciate, welcome back. So things went a little haywire today. I'll bring Carolyn in, my guest, before we start talking about this. She's kind of already heard about it, but I'll share with the audience kind of what happened today. Yes, I know, about time, blah, blah. Hi, Rosie. But I have a guest on tonight that I have now was lucky enough to meet up with twice. So I'm going to bring her on, and we're just going to kind of jump into this. I haven't warned her about the family yet, so be nice to her. You can still be mean to me, but be nice to her. But she's a fantastic person, so everyone say hello to Miss Carolyn. Hi, Carolyn.
Hi, I just switched over to the comments because it's a private chat. And I'm like, oh, hello. I can see it.
So everyone's kind of popping and saying hi. There's Rosie. There's Miss Sylvie. There's Wendy. There's Rosie giving me crap again about time. Stuart is hitting us up from Texas. So, hey, Stuart, what's going on? Hi, Kathy. I always say this name. I don't care what's going on, but I always say hello to Uilani Ku'ule because I can pronounce it, damn it. You can call her Mary. So she does that with a lot of people. Here's Miss Nikki, my wife. She's saying hello to you as well. Yes, you are always nice to your guests. So there's Miss Christy. But anyways, hi. This is going to go on for a while, so I'll just pop them in as they go. So I always like to tell people how we met. Now, first off, we have actually only met twice, and it has been in the same place. But you showed up in Omaha, here, actually in Ralston, at something that normally runs down in the Kansas City area called the Mystic Fair. Now, the Omaha one is known for Mystic Fest, but you came up here with Mystic Fair, and it's all the Kansas City folks basically coming up here to share all of your cool stuff with us as well. And the first time I came in, you were the very first table right on my right when I walked in. Now you're a little further back. You're like 3 or 4 tables back, but you were the very first one on my right. And I instantly said, I need to go talk to you. But of course you weren't there. So go figure. But that's how strong the energy was that came from you, is that I knew that I needed to speak with you, even with you not there. So, and my audience knows, my family knows, that's how I pick a lot of guests as I go to these fairs or these fests, or whatever you want to call them. And I feel your energy. And if it's a positive energy to someone I want to talk to, then I'll go and engage you, just like I engaged you to try to convince you to come on my show. And you said yes. So, yay. So here we are.
And you didn't even know I was hosting that event, did you?
I had no clue. Not a clue. Hi, Sandy. But yeah, so I had no clue at all that you were hosting it. We saw Mystic Fair, and we were like, oh, this will be cool, because we always kind of want to check out the Kansas City stuff, but you all came to us, so which was really nice. So we rolled out there, and we started talking to everybody. Nikki actually went way in the back to where the person does the bars, the light bars. I don't remember her name.
The crystal light bed. It was Judy and Cheryl.
Yeah. Nikki went back there to go use that, and I went finding you again. That's when I finally hunted you down after I cornered you and told you not to go anywhere. But yeah, so, and then that's when I realized, that's when you told me, by the way, I'm the one running this thing. You and I will freeze up. Right now your screen just froze a little bit, but I don't know if it was me or you. So my audience will let us know what's going on, just so you're aware. If I blip out, just don't go anywhere. I'll come back. If you blip out, okay, I will song and dance to the audience until you come back. So don't be gone very long, because they will not appreciate my song and dance. So make sure you come back. But anyways, that's how I met you. And then you guys just were back here a week or two ago. And I was very happy that you remembered that we had talked and you were still coming on my show, because I had it on the calendar and I was going to be really, really sad if you weren't here. So All's good.
I think I told you, I was like, I know that guy, and I remembered you, but I was like, I have no idea where I know him from, but I remembered your energy, and I was like, I know him.
Yeah. So Carolyn was doing a reading. She had a couple of ladies at her site, and Nikki and I are like circling like vultures right around her table, and I can tell that she recognized the beard, but not sure why. But yeah, that seems to happen. People seem to remember the beard. In fact, my guy I work with just got back from a location overseas, and he was like, so many people asked about you, but they didn't know your name. They were like, hey, don't you work with the guy with the beard? And that's how I recognized, apparently, is by the beard. So.
Well, you have light blue eyes like me, so I recognize your eyes too.
Okay. Yeah. But do me a favor, now that I've rambled on for a good, 6 minutes. Introduce yourself. Tell everybody who you are. Let them know what you do and how you got into doing what you do.
Okay. I'll try to make it a condensed version.
Because I guarantee
I will say too,
I will tell you right now, the 10 people that right now are watching our show, only one of them actually read out the whole printout I did for your advertisement. So yeah, please tell everybody what you do. So.
Well, I will say too, I don't usually read at my events, but at the Omaha event, I do read because we don't have as many people. So that's a whole different experience for me, actually having to stay in one place because I'm used to just like walk around the whole time. So I started reading tarot when I was like 16 when I was in high school. I was that girl that would go to the parties and bring my tarot deck. So I was always, I was also always a foot taller than everybody. So I was just different for whatever reason. The kid that talked to animals, and I still have crystals and all those things from when I was a kid. I actually asked my mom once, I said, I'm a teacher. And I said, if I would have had me as a student, like I would have thought I was special. And my mom was like, oh, we knew you were special. I was like, is that a compliment? Or it feels kind of weird, Mom. Yeah. But, I did all that kind of stuff when I was younger in high school. And then when I got into my early 20s, I just kind of went away from it. And I was working actually as a manager at a big fancy bar and just doing a lot of great, fun partying stuff. And then right after I turned 26, I lost my dad. So it was very sudden. And that was like the beginning of my life going a completely different direction. So I always, it's funny, he's been gone 12 years. And even at my fairs, I talk about him all the time. And I always make it well known that he was a Leo. So he would love it, that I wouldn't be doing any of this for a living if I hadn't had that experience. So something really great came out of that for me. So with that being said, it kind of catapulted me into, honestly, what happened right after he died was I started seeing spirits and I thought I was going crazy. Like literally I was becoming a paranoid schizophrenic and losing my mind. And a lot of stuff was going on, weird stuff. And I was real scared. And then something attracted me to energy work. And all of a sudden I was like, I want to go take this Reiki class. And then that's why I kind of call Reiki like a gateway drug, because as I learned those different levels over the next year, a lot of my abilities, if you will, kind of started to advance. And a lot of the, just like the people I was meeting were like growing the spiritual community and just like the things that I was doing like that. So in that same time frame, I used to host events that were just like non-metaphysical, just like pop-up shopping events, because I was always a hustler back in school and doing all the things to make money. And so I transitioned that into the metaphysical world because I am huge in essential oils and had a bunch of other products and things that were like more witchy fitting. So I thought, I have lots of friends that do this. I was working a couple of events as a vendor, not a reader. I wasn't really doing professional readings, just like kind of readings on the side for fun. And so I started my first fair, and it was just a one-day fair, and it was super successful. Everybody loved it. So that's when my business kind of really took off, and I kind of split it into two parts. So my fairs are really big. We've had those for 6 or 7 years. It's a really big community down here in Kansas City. We have 2 in Overland Park, Kansas, 2 in Kansas City, Missouri, 2 in the St. Charles area of St. Louis. We added on the 2 in Omaha this year, which we're not keeping, but that's another story. You'll have to come down here. I know you'll have to come down here. We tried. It's a whole story. And then at the same time, I was like building my own practice. So I used to, in the beginning, I've always done the tarot readings, but then in the beginning, I was doing a lot of energy work. And then I'm a teacher, so I got very called to teaching. So I don't share as much energy work as I used to, but I still teach. So I teach all the different levels. I've hosted 3 huge like Reiki Master weekend retreats, which is something I'm really passionate about. It's a lot more than just the energy work. There's so much more that comes with it for me. It's just like more of like not like a lifestyle, but there's just like other things that you learn and integrate with it. And there's a lot of spiritual development and like soul work that comes along with the attunements of Reiki, for my experience. And then my readings just kind of developed over time. So I started channeling, connecting to my guides, and then I started connecting to other people's spirit guides. And then I started working as a medium, and mediumship started coming through. And that was a completely different energy that I'd never worked with before. And now that's mostly what I do, is mostly mediumship readings. I love doing channel tarot readings. I use the tarot as a divination tool because I've worked with it I'm 39. I've worked with it for 23 years. And so they speak to me and I connect with the cards, but I don't have to use the cards. They're just kind of like an after, but it's fun to do both. So a lot of channeling the guides, which is separate from mediumship, but lots of times if I don't set boundaries, then the mediumship will still come through. So mostly mediumship readings. I love to do galleries. Just you put me in a group of 100 people and all their dead people at once. It's so much fun. It's like so much fun for me. So the fairs are my big bread and butter, my personal readings, and then teaching the energy work and other classes. Like I have a mediumship development course this fall and some other stuff like that. And yeah, I think that's the shortest version I could give you of what I do. I mean, I also study astrology and the Enneagram, and those are things that I offer along with like business coaching, but those aren't like my main things. I really like to teach people how to understand astrology, but I'm a communications professor. This is my 10th year doing that. So that's where the Enneagram falls in. That's something that I would teach on the university that's kind of carried over into this world too.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. Right now there's 2 people with questions. Nikki, I'm gonna go to your second because Taryn's here right now and I want to make sure we get her question in. So Paranormal Brew is actually Taryn Kerber. She's the owner of Paranormal Brew. You see her logo right there. It's actually on the bottom of my screen.
Okay.
And I love her to death. But she asked, do you communicate with your dad? Do you have that ability to communicate with your dad in a reading? So
my dad's actually one of my guides. So my dad's actually one of my guides. So when I got my very first Reiki attunement, we were in this meditation and he came to me and I remember saying like, go away. I don't want you here because I didn't want to deal with the emotions. My dad, I was very close to my dad. I lived with him until I was 26. He died right after I moved out. So we were like 2 peas in a pod. And I said, go away. I don't want to fucking cry. I'm trying to do something. And he said to me, like, I'm never going away. I'm part of the reason that you're here and I'm always going to be here. And that was when my relationship with my dad in spirit and how I communicated with him and how I was dealing with my own grief, that was the biggest tipping point in the scale for me. It's funny because I love to get readings and I get lots of readings for fun and for people that want to do my fairs. And I could not tell you how often people say, they're like, I'm not a medium, but I feel like I have your dad here. And I always say it's because he's one of my guides. So if you communicate with spirit guides, then he comes through. So I just told a friend today who's grieving, or yesterday who was grieving, about a meditation that I do to like meet my dad whenever I need advice for stuff. So yeah, he's there all the time.
So is that okay if I tell Taryn she can reach out to you to ask about how you do that?
For sure, yeah.
So there you go, Taryn. If you want to, because Taryn is extremely close with her father as well, but he's passed. He was a police officer. I believe he died in the line of duty, but she misses him, and he is definitely with her all the time. Yep, see, there we go.
Wow.
I'm talking faster than she's typing. That's awesome. I lost both my parents unexpectedly. Now I'm not a medium or psychic, but I am an investigator and have clairaudient abilities sometimes, but have yet to hear them. My dad's been gone 24 years. My mom has been gone for 6 months.
You know what? This is how my brain works. My birthday is 6/24, and she put 24/6, but that's my birthday, June 24th.
Awesome. So Taryn, if you want to, you can reach out to her. Hold on, I forgot to put this up there. Here. Way ahead of the people. So you can reach out to her right there if you want to, Miss Taryn. I got her approval for you, so you can reach out and ask how she meditates to get to speak with her dad. So maybe that'll help you reach out and hear your dad, because I know that you miss him lots and lots and lots.
That's a long time.
Yeah. Another starred one. Nikki, my wife, is asking, because you mentioned you're a teacher, She said, "You're a teacher. What do you teach? And more importantly, how do you deal with your abilities with all of your students' energy?" Because she's a teacher.
Feel the anxiety in my chest as you talk about it. Just reading that.
Because Nikki's a high school math teacher. And
yeah. I worked in elementary schools for a long time. And when I worked in elementary schools, I wasn't as aware of energy. And that's probably why it was so hard for me, because learning rules, it's so fun. I fucking love it when I'll be like in a conversation on social media and somebody will be like, "Oh my God, have some empathy." And it makes me laugh because I used to be so empathetic. It was literally debilitating for me. I still have students from when I taught elementary school that I lay in bed at night and they pop in and I'm like, I wonder if they're fucking okay. Like,
right.
So
yeah.
I really had to detach like my empathy, because it sucks, because empathy is like one of the things that makes you a really great teacher and really great at doing readings and metaphysical work, but you have to learn how to not take it with you. And when I teach college now, so the transitioning, although 9-year-olds and 19-year-olds are the fucking same thing, they want the same shit, literally. The energy is very different, right? So I feel like teaching older kids, I have a lot more control because I can say other stuff, and they're more at a pivotal point in their life where I know that they can use the information I'm giving them to make the changes. When they're little kids, you can always say so much to make them feel better, but then you have to send them back home to their awful home life. You know what I mean? So there's not a lot you can do. So I think understanding that you can only do what you can do and like let the rest of it go. When I first started teaching college, because I was only 30, I didn't hide who I was, but I didn't want my students to like have different viewpoints of me from what I did, or just like the way I looked on social media and stuff. And one day it was like the first week of school and some kid noticed like my crystal ring or something. And immediately was like, is that one of those like crystal things? My mom has those. And I was like, oh. And then somebody was asked me randomly, they're like, you look like a stoner. I'm like, who the fuck says that to their college professor? But because the hair. And so slowly over time, I like let that part come out. And what I realized was my authenticity and openness and my understanding of like things being a bigger picture. And also what I teach is very it's actual life stuff that you can incorporate in there. I feel like that allowed me to be closer to my students, to where I had this more understanding with them. And we were able to have like more open conversations, where I think not having to hide those parts of me and being able to like really talk about like, weird shit. I had this student who was in the military and he did a speech, and in his speech, he started crying. This grown man he's like, I haven't fucking cried in like 15 years. And he posted this picture, and him and a couple of his buddies in the picture were dead. And he felt the whole energy in the room shift. And afterwards, like he sat down, I will never forget, his name was Sasha. I said, I could feel them in the room. And everybody in the whole class was like, oh my God, so could we. And so it was like from that week one in that class, like we were just open about it. So I feel like a very long way around that, answering that, is like understanding you can only do so much, and like learning to detach, but also like using your understanding to like connect more with the students and to like be that person for them. You'd be really surprised. I feel like I was one of my students' favorites for a lot of reasons, but I think 99% of it was because I was a real human being, and I taught them and treated them like a real human being, and the stuff that we discussed like really mattered, and I gave them like actual tools. And we used to sit in a circle, and I would tell them all why I loved them in the last day of school and why they were important to me and why they mattered in this world, and then they would do the same for me, and it was just like this. I don't know. And then I would let them go. And every semester I would tell Spirit, like, give me the students that need me the most. Like whoever needs me the most this semester, whoever I can help make the most impact with, give them to me. And then it was just like on to like the next little group of my babies. So now I teach online, and it's actually harder to teach online because I don't have the personal connection with them. So it's a lot easier for me to not care because they just annoy me.
Well, luckily, I've been lucky enough to be in Nikki's class when she teaches, because I was a business mentor for a little while for her class as well. But she posted, me too, I didn't know I was an empath and thought something was wrong with me or I was sick. Going to the doctor to run tests to find out what was wrong. Then someone told her she was an empath, and then she needed to learn how to shield and protect herself. And she does that. But she is that person where the most troubled students go to, even if they're not in her class. They come to her just to talk. Like they'll just pop in, hey, Mrs. Springer, got a couple of minutes, whatever else. It's not even in her math class or anything else, but she's like, yeah, sure, because she treats them like humans, not just like, you know.
What an honor. What an honor to be able to be that person for other people on their journey. That's how I think about it. Like literally, what an honor.
Yeah, and she does that fantastically with all of her students. And it's funny too, because I know the students that she deals with, some of them, and I've seen them in other classes because I business mentor in other classes, and I see when they're in her class, and they're totally different. Like they actually show the respect and appreciate who she is and stuff like that when they're in her class, whereas the other ones, they're just like, don't care what you're saying. So, you know, type of thing. So it's pretty amazing to watch the switch happen.
The bad kids liked me when I taught elementary school because I was a bad kid. So I related to them and I did the same thing with them. Like I literally remember telling this one kid, I'm like, listen, bud, I know it's real hard not to talk. Like, trust me, I was that kid, but like, I would like I don't know. I always did better with positive reinforcement and stuff like that versus like negative. So that's still like what I do, even with like grown adults. It's like, if everybody shows up to class this week for both classes, then we'll leave early the third day. And it's like bribing them.
Right. Yeah.
We have the empathy and like the not understanding. Imagine teaching public speaking as an empath and having a bunch of freshmen during COVID wearing masks, petrified anyways. They're already freshmen. They're on public speaking, and then it's during COVID, and it was like I feel like I was gonna throw up the whole time. I'd be sending them Reiki and like grounding to the point where I'm like, we have to go outside because it was like so much. Oh my god, it was awful.
Yeah, everyone go sit under a tree, but it's snowing. Go sit under a tree.
Oh, no, seriously, it was so bad, so bad.
I don't care. So you kind of do a lot of everything. Hold on, I want to see. Nikki just popped into something, and thank you, Sharon. I love you too, because she posted that. Love you, Tom. Thanks for all you do. So thank you. I appreciate it. Much love. Nikki posted last year before cancer. I was trying to build my empath skills so I can feel the students' energies to help me know how to help them. But she shut it all down during cancer. We just went through. She found out January she had cancer. We just found out she's cancer-free, but she's still finishing up everything now, the final ends of it. But she is cancer-free, but she shut herself down completely because she didn't want to have a type of anything that can come in and hurt her in any way, shape, or form. So, and then she did that, and then I put all my blocks up around her and shields up around her and walls up around her and everything else to make sure nothing got through mine either. So hopefully she's now she's ready to start opening back up and start to help with the students again. So, well,
I will say the Enneagram, that's one of the things I love to know about my students, because I got told once when I was learning that by my mentor, she said that, so when you're in the Enneagram, you're labeled a number 1 through 9, and I'm a 7. And my mentor has said to me, you can't teach to every student like they're a 7. You have to teach to them like they're their own number. And that was huge for me in learning how to teach my students, because I knew who the perfectionists were. So I knew if something was ever wrong, not that anything ever was, but I knew they were going to need an explanation. I knew who the helper in the class was to ask for. Those were things I learned. It's the same with like, if I know their birth chart, I'm like, let me know these things about you. And then they're tools for communication for me. So,
yeah. I'm wondering if I'm a 5. I'd be interested in doing the Enneagram with you, because knowing what I know and how much of a nerd I am, and I just want to know everything. I just want to suck it all in, and I do so much research on everything in the world. I might be a 5, but I'm not sure.
Well, that's also where a 7 goes in health. So,
okay. Yep. So like I said, I know a little bit about Enneagram, so I guess we're there. Let's go ahead and talk about Enneagram. So that's something you do. So I know people are gonna see this word Enneagram, Enneagram, Enneagram. People are gonna look it up because I spelled it for them. They're gonna go, what the hell? I'll let you explain it, but I do want to put out there the fact that the thing I don't like about it is
that they somehow made it a Christian thing and it has nothing to do with religion, that part, or that just bothers me.
The fact that a lot of the personality assessment experts just call it like a pseudoscience, when what they're doing can be considered a pseudoscience. So why is theirs better than an Enneagram method, like the Briggs-Myers method, or whatever else, Myers-Briggs method? Why? I mean, there's a difference, but if you're going to call one pseudoscience, you have to call them all pseudoscience. So that kind of.
You know what's interesting is that those things fall under psychology and academia.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't even fall under communication. So like technically, yeah, I don't have my PhD. I just have my master's I have master's in communication and leadership. So I can only teach those classes. So I just taught the Enneagram because to me, it's a tool for learning and understanding communication. But technically, because I wanted to do a whole class on it, they said, well, that falls under psych. So that's a really good point. I never really thought about that, about how these personality tests are not considered pseudoscience. They're considered psychology. But I think it's because they're more tangible, like on paper. Like it's like research, academic, like there's academic and like scientific, if you will, research on it. So you can actually like study like on paper versus
where Enneagram isn't. Yeah. It's more like you said. It's to me I don't like using this term because too many people tie it to what you talked about, the Christian side of it. Mm-hmm. But to me,
it's nothing to do with religion at all.
But Enneagram to me is really more of a faith-based belief. I mean, it's more like you have to trust in it to know what number you are. Yeah. The information coming from it is understanding what you're giving them from it, what they're giving to you from it, and that they have to believe that that's what they are. Like, it's just that understanding. There's not that, like you said, that 50 years of written down bullshit on paper saying this is who you are. No, I can be whatever the fuck I want to be. So so you can't put me into a box with a Myers-Briggs. And this one really doesn't, because there's a lot of openness with it. But because I mean,
they like say it doesn't just put you in a box. The difference is it shows you how to get out of the box.
Right. Correct. That's a much shorter way to say that in a much better way. So so go ahead and explain to everybody, now that I've made a whole jumble of it, of Enneagram. Let's welcome Enneagram to the table.
Well, I will say too, this is something I was studying a while back and I've stopped, but it's interesting to correlate the Enneagram to astrology and how the energies of the different numbers really parallel different signs and the energy of the signs. It's really fascinating. So, I mean, the Enneagram itself is just personality test, but what it is it's based off of your motivation. So you're a number 1 through 9, and the number that you are literally is based off of whatever your motivation is in life. And they say that we're probably more predisposition to a few numbers, but then we become our number in early childhood based off of a wounded childhood message. So every number has a wounded childhood message, and then what their innate desire is. You also have a number that you go to in stress that you take on. And then you also have a number, which is like your path to enlightenment, if you will, that you go to in health. So the tests are very inaccurate for many reasons, but lots of times people test as their stress number, which is very interesting. And then it gets really complicated because there's something called your wing, which is the number right next to you. So some people really resonate. Like, I'm a 7 wing 8. People mistype me and they think I'm an 8 all the time. The difference really is the motivation and the way we go in stress. So, I mean, I've always known I was a 7 from the moment I took the test when I was back getting my undergrad. And some people have access to both wings. So that's why if you ever go online and take a test, I could share with you the test that I prefer. And what happens is these tests, they give you blanket statements like, I like to be the life of the party. And then the answer will say yes, sometimes, or no. And you have to kind of think about who you were pre-adult, like pre-marriage, pre-kids, pre-trauma, like who you kind of more were like at your core being. And you have to just try the best to answer without overthinking it. And if you're overthinking an answer, then you say sometimes. And it'll repeat the same questions in multiple different ways. And then it spits you out an answer. And personally, because I understand how the numbers correlate to each other, I can look at somebody's results and say, you're probably one of these 3 numbers. And then I heard something once that said, if you're ever curious what number you are, listen to like a podcast about it. And if it makes you emotional, that's when you're like, oh shit, that's me. That's what I did. I was like, I already knew, but I was like, oh, ugly crying. And I was like, somebody understands me. But the thing is for me, why it was such a great thing is because not only there were certain aspects of my personality that I always wondered, why do I have commitment issues? That doesn't make any sense. I don't have any reason to have commitment issues. Well, as an Enneagram 7, one of the core things is the idea of FOMO, the fear of missing out. And so it's like, if I settle for one thing, then what if something better comes along? And it's because our motivation is to avoid pain, physical, mental, emotional, whatever that is. And also why we're the most prone to addictions, because anything to escape the pain, right, is something that we're going to do. So I remember learning these things, and then you learn about the things you do in stress. So as a 7, one of the things we do in stress is escapism. So it makes you realize, oh, like when I lost my dad, I was on an airplane every weekend for a year. So then when I learned these things about myself, whenever I would have a commitment come up and I wouldn't want to commit, I would say, why? I would be aware. Why am I not wanting to commit? Or when I'd start looking for vacation ideas or something, I'd be like, I'd have to ask myself, are you trying to escape or run away from this? Even like having a cocktail on the couch, it's like with intention, like what is the intention of this, right? So for me, that's where I really enjoy it, because it taught me those things about myself. And also because I know the path to enlightenment is basically for Enneagram 7, instead of being the entertainer, is to step into the energy of a 5 and be quiet and observe and bring knowledge in. Yeah. And same with the stress number. Like I go to a 1 in stress, which is the perfectionist, and it makes me feel good. I love fucking cleaning. I love organizing shit. I love crossing shit off lists, but I've learned to go to the healthy side of my stress number. Now, if I ever get very critical and mean, that's when I'm like, oh, this is the ugly side. So for me, it just has taught me a lot of self-awareness. And also, like, if I know what the people close to me are, it helps me communicate with them better. My mom is a 9. Their motivation is to avoid conflict. I know if I need something from my mom that has to do with conflict, I'm not going to ask her after 5 p.m. She can't deal with it. Like, I have to approach her in a very specific way. You know, my sister's Enneagram 2. Her motivation is to help people. She loves to be needed. So for me to give her the opportunity to be needed and help me, it's literally filling her cup. Yeah. So knowing those things about people, to me, it's like you can give them the things that they need more.
Yeah. I mean, it can even break down stuff as far, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe it can even break down people who who are the most successful because their goal or their path in life is to be achieving things that are material success type things. So I think that was like, again, a little smidgen of what I remembered hearing when that word came up to me, and I had to ask you how to remember to pronounce it because I didn't remember. But that's reaching back in my data bank there for what an Enneagram was. That's some time ago that I heard that. So I'm reaching back to years ago type of information. So I'm glad to tell you I'm not totally crazy, and my memory hasn't completely gone, and some of my stuff is still correct. So
I love that for you too.
So let's flip over to, because like I said, everyone's going to start typing in Enneagram. All right, folks. Once again, ENNEAGRAM. So
I'm going to answer Rosie really fast. Enneagram 8. So you have an 8 and a 6. 8s, their motivation is to be in control, but they don't necessarily want to control other people. The only reason they want to control other people is because they don't want to lose control of themselves. So it's like, I'm going to be in charge because I don't want you to tell me what to do. That's what it's because they don't trust any other people, where 6s don't trust themselves. So they tend to be more followers to people. Like I genuinely believe that probably 80% of people that are diehard Trump supporters are probably Enneagram 6s, because they idealize people to feel safe. But yeah, the main is 8, but you could also 2s, which are the helpers. They go to an 8 in stress. So when 2 is stressed out, they take on the attributes and they try to control everything around them.
Interesting. So is this something that you offer online through your site?
I do Enneagram. What I do is Enneagram coaching. So what I do is I have people take the test and I have them send me the results, and then I tell them these are the 3 that I would have you look at, and maybe give them like a quick rundown. We might talk about all 3, and then somebody might be like, well, this is what stands out most, and then I help people figure out like what their type is.
Okay. Yeah, I'd be interested in reaching out to you for that. I'm pretty sure I'm a 5. I force myself to do the show because I am an introvert, and I am that silent one who looks around and watches everything take place. Very much so. And then issues help when it's needed. Melody, I'd be interested too. You may have to reach out to her to find out. Melody's asking, I'm interested, wonder what my number is. I'd be interested to know what Melody is as well. She's out in Hawaii, so Yeah, her and Uilani Ku'ule are out there in Hawaii. I actually got to meet them when I went out there not too long ago, so that was nice. I want to kind of switch gears and go into the other part that you help with.
I was going to say dead people.
What's that?
I was going to say, do you want to talk about dead people?
Well, I want you.
Mediumship. That's just what I can't see a 7. I got to make a joke.
Not yet. Not yet. I don't want to do that one yet.
Okay.
I want to go into what the whole write-up was, and where your write-up really talked strongly for those people who read it was about teaching people to be the best them they can be. Like how to open that up for them. How do they do that? What do you do for them to help them get to that point?
Well, honestly, I like to integrate a lot of the tools like the Enneagram. So I think it's a lot of self-understanding. So when I give readings, even like when I start talking about stuff like this, it's almost like I just like open up to one channel. When I do readings, it's very much about advice moving forward, and it's very much about putting yourself as like the center of your life. I am a huge believer of Abraham Hicks. Those are like the teachings that are like my Bible. And so I really believe that, especially if we want to help people around us, the best way we can do that is to live authentically and live the best version of ourselves and shine and be happy ourselves. And the more we do that, people just literally see that around us. And that's like what kind of helps and heals the people around us, right? So really getting back to the core of like who we are, like what are our wants, what are our desires, like what are our passions, like really teaching people that they can have everything that they want out of life and they have the ability to do that, and understanding like our shadows. I don't do like deep shadow work, but like understanding like our shadows and our triggers and our trauma. And I'm really, really big on learning about our triggers, so we understand that every time we're triggered or jealous or anything, like it's mirroring us back a lesson, right? And so more switching to like when we have negative experiences come up and talking about those, it's how is this teaching me something about myself? And honestly, like learning to understand that like the right people won't be brought to us and won't show up in our lives unless we're like being authentic ourselves. I have to tell people all the time, they think that I hate people when people put me on a pedestal. I mean, I understand why people put me on a pedestal because I'm a Leo rising. So I'm really great. And I am like, I understand it. But also like, I'm a human. And then I feel like if people put me on a pedestal and then when they decide I don't belong there, I fall really fucking hard down. So it's a lot of pressure when people say that. So I'm very open about the fact that I always joke and say like I'm 88% in love and light and 12% go fuck yourself, because my goal in this lifetime is not to become an ascended master and to be perfect. Like I'm here to have a human experience and be joyful most of the time, but people also piss me off and I'm not perfect. And anger isn't a part of emotion that's valid, So just like really figuring out like who we are and what we want and the things that make us tick and the things that make us happy. And I feel like people just need encouragement to be who they are, and people for whatever reason always have to be reminded that they're allowed to do what is best for them and to put themselves first. And it's like people don't understand that. You have to like beat it into their heads.
Yeah.
So I'm here to keep that into your head, that you deserve to be happy and to put yourself first. So
yeah, because a lot of people think that they're here to please their bosses or to others think whatever. But so you're going to be the first person to ask this question to, because I just want to know. I want to know your opinion. You're there to help people be their absolute, authentic, 100% self. What happens if your absolute 100% authentic self is just a dick?
I thought you were going to say asshole. What if you're an asshole?
So, I mean, what is that your 100% authentic self?
I don't think that is anybody's 100% authentic self. Just like anger is a secondary emotion to cover up pain and grief. I think that being a dick and being offensive and people that are like that are very easily offended, and people that are easily offended do it for a certain reason. And anybody's initial reaction is to be a dick, that's a trigger. And if people are just walking around generally grumpy and rude, that's because they're unhappy, right? I think at the base, if you find any of those kids, now this isn't true for everybody, because I'm sure there are some kids who are just assholes from childhood on, but also I feel like they learned that for some reason, right? But I feel like if most adults went back and there was like their 3 or 4 year old self, like They would have been just like a normal kid. And then they probably experienced some sort of trauma or something by their parents or something that was taught to them. And like most people, especially like most women that are labeled bitches, it's because they had to become that way to protect themselves. And I would say the same goes for men. Now, I couldn't speak to what men experience that makes them be like that tough, toxic masculine man, but I could definitely speak from personal experience why women go that way. It's a form of self-protection.
Yeah. Ajang, hi Ajang. Ajang's the one from Indonesia. That's why I gave you the Indonesian time frame in the beginning. But she would like to know, how old were you when you realized your abilities?
So I think when I was a kid, I didn't understand what was going on because I was just very wise beyond my years. I had a teacher tell me that I scared her because I spoke like a 30-year-old when I was in middle school. But I definitely wasn't aware then. I remember reading tarot and doing all that stuff in high school and just being like, do people understand that? Like, how do I know this shit? Like, this is weird. Like, this is like making sense. Like, what the fuck is going on? But I mean, I would say when I was, I almost said when I was 24 was when I lost my dad, but I was 26. And I would say that's when everything really started for me. And that's when everything started clicking. The first time I went to Reiki class and I just knew where to put my hands. And I started having these like aha moments. And I remember like I saw this ghost very specifically and I felt like it had followed me from my aunt who's also in Spirit's house. And I remember asking my aunt being like, will you tell me about the ghost that you think lives at your house? And she described this ghost that I had verbatim of what I had seen. So I just kind of started believing it then. And they developed I think my skills really developed starting at 26, probably my mediumship into like my early 30s. But I mean, that's a muscle. And I had an experience during doing a reading this weekend with that was mind blowing to me. That was something new I'd experienced. So I feel like I'm always developing, but I guess I don't really like the word it's hard for me with the word abilities because I feel like that's one of those things that makes me feel like I'm more special or better than everybody. But I feel like anybody can do what I do some of us are more predisposition to it, but I think everybody has abilities. But the very long answer to that would be, I guess, probably around 26 or 27.
Yeah. You were going to say 24 because remember it was 24 years ago that Taryn's father passed away.
Yeah, and I saw that. Well, in 24 is when I finished my second college degree. Like when I stopped, I was in school my whole life, and then I went and got back-to-back college degrees. And then my 24th birthday, I broke up with a guy I'd been for 4 years in college and then didn't go back to school in the fall. And then those next 2 years were a very, very, very transitional time in my life. And then my dad passed in the May right before when I was like 26. And then I went back to grad school right after that. So that was like this weird time in my life where I was like, I could have gone two different directions.
Yeah.
And I went this direction that I'm in now. So
yeah. Very cool. All right. Ready?
Yes.
We're going medium. We're going medium side now. So I don't know how much you and I talked about what my stuff is, but I am a practicing intuitive because I have a lot of weird shit that just happened, like I was drinking from a fire hose when my awakening happened about 3 years ago. One of them is mediumship. So, but people ask me, and I realize that we're seeing it differently. When you are doing readings for people, how do the messages appear to you? Some people get symbols, some people get actual words, some people like me, it's literally like the person is talking in my ear. So I'm basically telling that person back word for word what they're talking. Cool. So what does your mediumship look like when you're receiving message?
Well, I don't get the Claire where you taste ever. I think I've maybe had that like 2 times ever, which is kind of gross. So I don't really want that. And then I have smell, but the smell, which is weird because my human design sense is smell. So smell is up there for me, but it's not one of my main ones. And surprisingly, I do hear the messages a lot. And I hear a lot of names and I hear a lot of numbers. But the majority of the way that I receive messages is the pictures that I see in my head and then how they make me feel. So for me, it's very strong feeling. And they do make me feel, I allow them to make me feel in my body, not just the emotions that they felt or the emotions that they feel for the person, the sitter, but also I'll feel the pain in my body of how they died. But the rule is too, as soon as I feel that, as soon as we get it across, it goes away.
Yeah.
With me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, mine is weird because they're actually like sitting right next to me telling me, okay, so tell my son this, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay. What's that?
It's way easier.
It's way easier. I mean, they tell me what I'm supposed to say. It's kind of nice because I'm naive enough that when I learned I had abilities, I thought we all had the exact same abilities, all exactly the same. Like all of them were exactly going to be the same across the board. Come to find out, I was very sorely mistaken. Because when I started asking questions about people who do mediumship reading and stuff like that, I realized it's a little different for me than it is for you or from other people and stuff like that. So it's kind of interesting to learn what other people, how they do it. Because I don't have any feelings at all when it happens. It's literally them just like I'm talking to you now. It's just them, they're just talking. So I get none of the emotion unless I hear it in their voice, but I don't feel any of the emotion at all.
And I wonder why, if that's why I feel more drained sometimes, is because it's not, I feel, because it's like a physical impact. It's like physically in my body.
Yeah. Yeah. And mine's not. Mine's literally like what you and I are doing right now, except it's someone you can't see.
Yeah. So to feel people's grief, I feel like I have to work really hard on like respecting my body and like letting it go and like making, because sometimes I'll do readings and I'll like leave and go someplace and I'll get really sad and I'm like, this isn't mine. No.
Right.
And I have to be very, very conscious about it.
Yeah. So it's weird. I don't get the feeling, but I know what it is. I don't know if that makes sense. Like I don't
So interesting.
I don't feel the pains you do. I don't get that, but I know what it is. Like I can see it in its physical form of what it would be, of what you're feeling, which is kind of interesting. But when you do, are you one of those who do a reading and only give them the information that you think they want to hear, like some people do, or you just like, whether good or bad, you're going to give them the information that you're being told?
Well, you mean like in a mediumship or like in a channeled like tarot spirit guide reading?
Yes. We'll go with yes.
Well, okay. Well, for the tarot like channeled spirit guide, like my basic questions I ask are, what's helping you right now? What's hindering you? What's your next step to take and what needs to be released? So there's always going to be negative shit in there. I definitely don't sugarcoat things at all. I am not harsh or like abrasive. And I also will differentiate when I do a reading and I'll say like, these are not my words. Like, this is like what your guides are saying. And sometimes I'll be like, now the human part of me wants to also add this in. Like just the very intelligent, well-educated communication professor that has all this knowledge. Like that's not from your guides. That's from me. Right. But I mean, a lot of deep, heavy shit comes up for people. And I feel like I do a really good job of like holding space for people in what could be considered very awkward or weird or hard. Actually, one of the best compliments I had was a woman told me once that I worked with that I had a really great way of making what could be uncomfortable conversations just seem really easy and normal. And I pride myself on that for holding space for people in a non-judgmental way. I had a student once who felt like they couldn't speak their truth in my class because they were very conservative and Christian and they knew the whole class was not that way. And it really hurt me that they felt like I didn't give them space to talk. So that's something that I had to realize, wow, it triggered me because I pride myself on, holding space for the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yeah. As for mediumship, I don't necessarily feel like there's a lot of, I would say, bad stuff that comes out. Now, this weekend was very interesting for me. I read at an event in Southern Illinois, Psychic Fair, for 2 days, and there was a lot of themes with a lot of the sitters. So the sitters, like the person I'm giving the reading to, and it's called the sitter's need. So sometimes you're doing the mediumship, and they would also have like channeled messages come through with it. So like I had a lady, and I don't remember who I was talking to of her somebody that had died from alcoholism in her family. And I was like, so he wants to talk about like your issues with alcohol too. And I was like, are you open to that? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, girl, it was I'm pretty funny when I do readings too. I'm like, he's like telling me that you like wine. Like I used to like wine. And so I know how much you like wine. And she's like, yep, I like wine. And I said, and whiskey, that was never my thing. She's like, yep, that's my second go-to. So I feel like because of my Enneagram 7 personality and me always wanting to look at the positive and flip it, I will talk about really deep, hard things, even in my galleries. But then in the next breath, I feel like I'm making people laugh or like trying to like give them that like nurturing love. So I feel like I have a nice way of delivering stuff like that. I had a lot of people this weekend too, where the people that came through first were not people they wanted to talk to. And so I would just make it a point to give them a lot of evidence. So my thought was, at least if I'm giving you a bunch of evidence with this person, if anything, it's teaching you that there are people that are out there watching you and that you understand that this is real. And then one guy literally was like, I remember saying like, okay, well, I have this stepdad here and he clearly did really bad shit to you as a kid. And I said, I don't even want to talk to him. So she's like, okay, yeah, because I don't either. And I just said a couple of things and we moved on. Because it kind of depends on like, what's the fucking point? Like, I don't need some spirit to apologize to you so they can amend their own shit. Now, if you need to hear it and you need to talk about it, that's a different story. But I try to take myself out of it and take my ego out of it and just say, hi, Mia, what's going on? Like what I hear and what I know.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to think of the best way to say this.
That's like me in a reading. That's like me in a reading being like, how do I not sound like a dick?
Well, and the funny thing is I have now, since you brought this up, and now remember I told you I had to block people off from me when I'm doing my show? Hello.
Was my dad talking to you? What does he say? No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know who's talking to me, but they're trying to jump in there and say hi. So I'm kind of blocking. When someone comes to you and they're like, hey, I'm looking for a reading, I'm looking for a message, I'm looking for something. And no one steps forward, how do you try to coax them forward? Say, hey, someone's here looking for you. And I mean, how do you deal with that if someone's coming to you for assistance, for help, for a reading or something like that, and all of a sudden you're just like, a lot of static, no one, nothing.
I mean, for mediumship, right?
Yeah, for mediumship. Yeah.
So I usually ask people, I say, do you have like somebody in specific that you're trying to reach? I say, don't tell me who. Or do you have like a plethora of people to choose from? And most of the time people have at least one or two specific people. I've had a couple people who really say, I did a reading for a gal one time and I said, girl, to be honest, I said, you literally you have like a dog. I was like, you don't even have anybody. She didn't know what mediumship was. She was confused and was like, oh no, I don't know like any dead people. And I was like, well, clearly, like, what the fuck are we doing here? Oh, but her dog was there. I remember that girl. That was years ago. I say this from a very humble place, but I don't really experience a lot of readings where people don't come through. Now, I might have a harder time grabbing on to somebody. And in that case, I just tell the people, like, I just need a little more time to connect. And as soon as usually once I get one spirit what happens is they all merge together for me lately. I think because I do so many galleries and I'm really trying to work on them separating themselves and showing themselves to be individually. And so I'll just spend a little more time and wait till usually as soon as I get one and they start going, a lot of old men like me, so they'll come in first. Then then it's like the ball gets rolling. I really honestly haven't had hardly any readings where I don't get anybody. I did have a very, very confusing reading this weekend that I was really confused by because I wasn't understanding how I was feeling. And it's literally because the ghost didn't know he was dead.
Oh yeah.
I did this whole reading and afterwards I thought, that's not fucking real. I didn't do that. That doesn't make sense. So, but that was an experience for me because I was like, why don't I understand this? And it's because, this weekend, I really felt like I was in the body of the spirit for a lot of it. And I was experiencing the readings from like their version, their viewpoint. It was very different for me. I mean, and that's the thing too, is having to taking the ego out of it. And I tell people, if it doesn't fit, if it doesn't make sense, it won't hurt my feelings. There was evidence in every reading this weekend that did not make sense to them. Almost every reading I had did have somebody for the next reading, which was really neat. And I had somebody there that was there from the very beginning that ended up being for my last person of the day. And it was crazy because they had built the whole time. But I think as much as I'm a people pleaser in that I want to be good at what I do. Who doesn't want to be good at what they do? But I just really want to show up for people. And I really, really want people to feel better after they have readings with me because I know what it's like to lose a lot of really close people. And so if I have the ability to help people feel better and give them some sort of comfort, like that's really what I want to do. And so that's why it's like so important for me to do good, because I want so badly for the person sitting there to feel better. Right. So I have learned to just take like my ego out of it and say like, it's spirit's job to communicate with me. And lots of times I tell before days, I'll say, listen, whoever can give me the best evidence, that's who I want to talk to today.
Yeah.
And then other days I'm like, whoever this person really needs to hear from, as painful as it might be for me, I accept today might be the hard ones. But then some days I'm like, can we all be funny?
Right.
Like I had a guy flirting with me on Sunday and I was like, this is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like literally his buddy goes, I knew he'd be the first person to come through because I knew he'd flirt with you. It was so funny. So funny. His name was Max.
Oh.
Yeah.
So do that on the flip side. You kind of tried answering it, but I'm going to ask it to you in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
When you're in a gallery setting or something like that, and everybody rushes you at once, how do you put them in line? I mean, that's literally what I do. Yeah. When I get rushed like that, I literally say, all right, you guys need to stop, get in line, or I'm just going to shut it all down at once. And they hate it if I decide I'm going to shut it down, because they're like, but we want to talk. I'm like, then get in line and take your number. And I'll call you.
The first time I did a gallery in St. Louis by myself, I thought I was going insane. And I'm like in the bathroom before, and I feel like I'm going to throw up. And it feels like I have the worst anxiety in my life. That's what it feels like in my body. And I'm like, if you all don't fucking shut up and leave me alone and everybody step back, I'm not going to do it. And nobody gets to talk to anybody. I'm in the bathroom like a psychopath, like screaming at myself. So what I do, I had a friend in that gallery, and I remember I walked in, she had surprised me and drove there from Kansas City. And I looked at her and she like read my mind and she said, take control. Yeah. And so that's what I remember is what I teach is that we're in charge in the dimension we live in, and we live in the 3D. So we're in charge. So in my mind, what I do is I clear my mind out and I literally push everybody out of my mind. And then I ask like one specific person to come through. And so like, that's what I'll do in my head. I'll push everybody out and then just allow like one energy to come forward.
Which is funny because mine literally looks like a row of people like at a movie theater or waiting for tickets at an airport or something like that, because I tell them, get in line. I'll get to you when I can, but get in line. And then like they'll stand there and I'll see the other ones like back talking to each other like, well, how come I couldn't get to the front of the line? Why do I have to stand back here and wait? So I just laugh.
They'll show themselves to me like that. So I'll have like this weekend, I remember she had a brother and then she had a sister and somebody else, like a mom or something in spirit. But I remember like the brother was showing himself really close to me. And then it was like the mom was like behind him and the sister was like down here. And I was telling her how they were. I was like, your brother's like right next to you, like closer to you than your mom or your sister. And she's like, no, yeah, I was the closest to my brother by far. Yeah. So even like how they show themselves, this one guy this weekend, I literally was like at my funeral and I was like him and I was looking on the left side and I'm like, God damn. I'm like, you have all these dead people on your mom's side. They're all like sitting in the funeral. And I'm like, there's like 2 dead people on your dad's side. And this woman was very old. And she's like, no, I don't know any of my dad's family. That's why I wouldn't like their spirits wouldn't show up. Yeah. So they did a lot of that for this weekend too, where they would show up and show up together and they kind of like present. It's not fucking, the more I talk about it, it's like so weird to me. I'm like, how is this real? What?
So I got 2 questions from Nikki. I'm gonna go to I'm gonna go to the second one first, and I'll come back to the first one. So she wants to know, how do you keep the maxes out of your house? Like, no, really, how do you keep spirits from following you home or out of your home?
So boundaries are huge, but like setting rules with him. And what I really have learned, and I need to be better at this too, is not just at the end of a day of readings, like sending everybody away, but even like at the end of each individual reading, like closing my eyes and saying like, thank you to this person's family members and everybody for showing up. But like, now it's time for you to leave. And then at the end of the day, before I leave any event, like there was another practitioner there and I asked her to like cleanse me and clear me and like do her little thing where she calls all my power and my intention back to me. And I just have a conversation with them and I thank them all for being there. And lots of times it's a really beautiful emotional conversation for myself and I give them gratitude. And then I literally am like, now it's time for you to go. And then every once in a while, like that Max guy, he kept popping back in. He was so his energy was just hilarious. And I'm like, okay, bud, like you have to stay in Illinois. Like, like you can't stay here. So then I work a lot with Archangel Michael and ask him for protection. And So I hope that answered the question. I do that. I every event I ever work, when I come home, I always take a shower to rinse myself off with intention. I do energy work of like releasing. It's as simple as like, I release any energy from that doesn't belong to me. I release any cord swords and attachments. I release any people. I let them all go. And then I call all my power and all my energy back to me. And I like re-shield myself.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we investigate, which is going to lead us to our next question. And we do that when we leave. We let them know, hey, thank you for sharing your information with us, but you have to stay here, or you can't come with us. You can't climb into our car. You can't attach any of our stuff or anything else. We clear it. And then when we go home, we put everything inside of the garage, and then we sage it all. And we open up our garage. It's like Cheech and Chong live there for as much smoke rolls out of it. So we get some looks from neighbors, but that's, but yeah, we're kind of the same way with that, which leads to the second questions that Nikki asked was, have you ever, or do you ever do paranormal investigations, especially to hone into your own abilities?
I have never really had a desire to go into haunted places, honestly, because I kind of feel like, why would I go looking for them when they come to me? It makes my head tingly talking about it. I feel like a lot of the energies and the entities that live and stay in those spaces are not the kind that I would want to be around or work with. I do and have had experiences with what I call like energies that are living in like in the 4D that haven't like ascended to the 5D and above, or heaven, if you will. It was very weird for me this weekend to work with that energy that was like kind of in that middle area and like didn't know they were dead type shit.
Yeah.
So I say worry because I would be worried that it would be harder to have that many people trying to attach to me and talk to me. And that some of the spirits might not be coming from a place of like love, if you will. I will say people that go sit in like, there's a place people go sit in like the electric chair where people have died. You could not fucking pay me to sit in that.
There's the devil's chair.
You couldn't pay me $10,000. Fuck no. I'm not sitting in that shit. I feel like I had to sage my ass for the rest of my life. But this summer, I was on a road trip with one of my gay besties who's also a medium, and his name's Joseph, Good Juju with JoJo. And I felt really called to go to the prison in the Joliet prison, where actually Blues Brothers was shot. I had no fucking idea. And what's that?
I said, what?
Yeah, I know. I learned things. I was confused. But I was so drawn to go to this prison. And even when I told my therapist, she was like, that surprises me. And I said, I know, but I just feel like I need to go there. And man, the experience that I had there was something I had never experienced before, to the point where I was like craving it. And like, I want to go back because it was such an experience. And it was such I felt like spirit was telling me like, this is really important for you in like your development and your understanding of stuff. So that was part of the reason I needed to be there. And also the experience I had with some of the employees there, because they're they got millions of dollars to like redo that jail to get it back to like what it was before it got destroyed. And so talking to some of those kids, and it was just sitting in the yard there, sitting in that yard with all those people that have been in and out of there for, 150 years is fucking wild. I mean, going into the barracks, I couldn't physically walk past a certain point.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious to see what's supposed to happen, because I started in investigating, and I still do investigating. But I've also been told by two people now that is not, I'm only using it to hone my abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Because something greater coming up, but they can't see what it is. They just know that that's where I had to start at first to move to the next step. So I'm curious to see where that next step takes place. I know right now a lot of my energy has been focused on Nikki more than me. So to get her through her stuff. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Well, I wonder if it has to do with what I just talked about moving on souls from the 4D into the 50, like helping souls that haven't like gone. That would be that's like what it would sound like to me.
Yeah. The interesting thing too is that I actually hear and talk to people from multi dimensions, not just like a psychic like I am here, but they actually resonate differently. And they tell me and they talk to me differently, because when I feel them here, I feel them in my head. But when they're from another dimension, they're actually through my shoulders. And other mediums can't hear them, which is really interesting.
You mean like extraterrestrials and stuff like that?
They don't identify themselves as extraterrestrials. They just tell me that they're in a different dimension when I talk to them. So I don't know. Like the one I spoke with initially, the first one that came to me, her name was Mary. And we had 2 other mediums, and she told me, they won't hear me, you will, but I'm in a different dimension.
Well, I wonder if it's like higher up. Like not everybody can talk to like angels because they live in higher up dimensions. So you have to be able to match your frequency to that dimension to communicate with them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting point too, because when Nikki goes to see somebody that I went and saw for the first time and identified her 2 angels that were with her, and she said, no one's ever identified that I have 2 angels with me, but you just did. And I said, yeah, I know exactly who they are and where they're at. And she was like, that's different because no one else has caught that before. So that'll be interesting to see where this leads to. So
yeah, that's my understanding. And like I always try to tell people too, like this is just like my belief or my understanding on things is and that's actually something I've heard Abraham Hicks speak about too, where it's like when you can get your vibration up that high, that's when you connect. That's when you can connect with those people. Somebody said something about the jail. I
have a bookmark right now, so we're good.
Yeah. I was like, I did want to tell that story, but yeah, I was going to say too, like when mediumship started happening for me, I would be shuffling my tarot cards or using another divination tool, and the cards would fall out of my hand. And I would get very, very tongue tied. And what I realized was I was experiencing a different form of energy trying to talk to me. And so I had to that's why it felt different for me. Because I was like, oh, this is a different energy. I'm not a big fan of aliens per se. And I've had that energy come through once and I didn't like it. Well, a couple of weeks ago at the Omaha Fair, actually, one of the healers, her name was Lisa. She was right on the left side when you walked in. That is what she does. She works and she does amazing like Merkaba light worker energy with like all different kinds of extraterrestrials. And she wanted a reading. And as soon as she sat down, I literally was like, I said, I don't know about this. And I said, because you have all these fucking aliens. And I said, I don't like that energy. And that's really important to her because that's who she works with. And what I literally heard in my body was they were like, my energy is so much different now that I can connect with their energy and it doesn't feel scary or bad like it did for me years ago. And I said, okay, I trust. And it was fine. It didn't affect me or feel different than anything else because I've gotten so used to being in like high vibrational states that like walking into like a giant psychic fair or an Abraham Hicks where there's 1,500 people, I don't really feel the sensitivity of it like I used to.
Awesome. So yeah, I'll go back to what Mo said. Mo is asking, wasn't it sad to hear the souls in the jail?
So yeah, so what was interesting was when I remember walking around the yard and I remember like feeling like I could feel the people that had been there, and you could feel the energy was very different in different parts of the jail, because in the yard, that's where they felt their sense of freedom, right? So they felt different there. I remember I really, really, really wanted to sit down at one of the benches that was in the yard, but it felt disrespectful. And so I didn't. And I also was worried about picking up their energy. I had told my buddy, I said, let's not touch anything because I don't want to accidentally take anything with us. And then I remember going into like the death row, and it actually felt way more peaceful to me than any other place there, because it was almost like they were secluded and safe, and like most of them had just like accepted their fate, if you will.
It is.
And then I remember there was a library part, and I was like, this feels like people got fucking shanked. And like same in the lunchroom, I wouldn't go in the lunchroom because you could just feel like the stuff that had happened there. But when we went to walk in the barracks, there was like a front row. You could stay on the bottom floor. You could go in the front, or you could walk down and go down the back row. But there was only one way in and out. And it was really cold in there, and it was really hot outside. So it felt really good. It was all dark, and you couldn't go upstairs. And I told my buddy, I said, okay, we'll walk in. And I said, I'll walk down and back with you. And then we started to walk towards the back, and literally like my physically could not go back there. Like I was like, I can't go back there. Like my body would like not let me go back there. And I walked up to the front, and one of the workers had come in, and he was like, what's happening? And I kind of told him, and I remember he told me later on, he said that he had seen about maybe 3 or 4 women who had the same experience where they literally like physically couldn't go back there. And he said that specific row was actually the, I forget the name for whatever it is, where it's like the solitary confinement row. So like where the worst shit happened. And then I said, okay, well, I said, I'm going to walk down the front. And Joseph just fucking took off. He was just prancing like a goddamn unicorn, just up and down the rows. And I'm like, bro. And I asked him, I'm like, how can you, we had a conversation because I said, we don't feel the same. Not that one of us is better than the other. We just feel things very different.
Right.
And he's like, oh, I just tell the angels to protect me and I feel fine. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't not feel this as hard as I fucking do, because he doesn't feel things like I do. And I was like, I can do this. I can do this. I was just trying to walk down the first. And the next thing I know, just like, this just overwhelming, just pressure on my chest, just pain. And I remember turning around and looking at this kid that worked there that was walking with me because he was fascinated by me. He's probably like 25 years old. And there's just tears just falling out of my face. And I was like, do you see what's happening? And he's like, what is happening? And I'm like, just uncontrollable, just like I'm not even crying. The tears just won't stop.
Right.
And I was like, couldn't go past the first one. And I just stood there, and immediately I just could get this sense that it was like this younger, like Black gentleman in his 30s. And he's like, I could hear him like writing a letter to his mom. And then I just like, I couldn't breathe and I had to go back outside. And I was just like, and then I went back in like 2 other times because I felt like Spirit was like, you need to do this to understand and to feel. And it was just like, what the fuck? And I remember telling one of the girls, I said, could you imagine like people could come here and their family members had lived here, their family members had died here. And she told me a story about they were working one day and they heard screaming, and this man who had been there for 20 years imprisoned came back and was just in the yard on his knees, just like releasing and screaming. And I was just like, I don't know what it is, but I don't know if it was just the energy that comes along with the prison. I don't know if it was like the paranormal activity. I don't know if it was that place specifically, but I had some very strong connection there that I still feel connected to. Yeah. Maybe you had somebody there, I don't know. But even like talking about it, like makes my chest hurt. And and then I remember we got in the car to leave, and I was really I snapped about something, and then I got really bitchy, and I said, I'm sorry, that's not mine. Let's just leave that there. Like I had picked up something, and then as fast as I picked it up, I was able to let it go. But man, I thought about that place every day for like the next like 2 or 3 weeks. I couldn't get out of my head.
So I got 2 questions on here. One's from Mo. She says, how does one raise their energy on point?
What do you mean by on point?
So basically, how do you get your vibration, your high vibration energy to rise?
I think it's one of those, it's like the muscle that you just have to work, and the more practice that you have at it, excuse me. And then that's so funny talking about energy work. I'll burp whenever I do readings, moving energy, and just talking about that literally just made me burp. I think that the more that you expose yourself to stuff, and the more that you work with the energies, and the more that you connect with them, and it's like, it kind of just like starts stacking on top of itself, and also like calling in those energies. So there's always been only a couple archangels that I really worked with, but I could feel lately that like the archangels were actually wanting to work more with me, and they're a higher vibration, right? So then starting to call in and starting to work with, because I was working with like ascended masters. So I think it's just the mix of like doing it more and more. And then the more that you put yourself in like a healthy vibrational state where you're like in alignment with yourself, like not to keep referencing Abraham Hicks, but I just always will. And like, finding like that center, like as soon as you wake up, and the more you're staying in alignment with yourself, the more your vibration raises. And calling in and working with a higher energy entities. That was a hard one for me to say. Also, too, it's making me think, and I wonder if people that work with lower energy entities, I wonder if that somehow changes it. If you're constantly working like in like the lower levels and dimensions and stuff, if that somehow is affecting your vibration. I don't work with lower level entities or thing like that. So,
yeah. Hopefully that answered your question, Mo. Mo is actually my neighbor across the street, so that was good. Oilani Ku'ule is asking, what's your thoughts on remote investigations?
Well, I do a lot of energy doesn't know time or distance, right? So that's why, like, I know I can do like energy sessions. I don't have to be in the room to read somebody. I think if you were energetically like tapping into a space, I could see that working the same as if I'm like if I'm tapping into the energy of a person that I'm not with. I don't know why you wouldn't be able to tap into the energy of a space. I feel like, I don't know, it's in this, I was going to say, sometimes I feel like our senses help us and they hurt us, right? So being in a space using all 5 of your senses might be stronger. But also for me personally, when I do distance sessions on people and I don't have like the physical things there to distract me, it actually heightens some of my other senses. So, and I think too, probably if you're going with like a camera and you're like seeing things, I don't think that would make a difference. But I feel like the feeling aspect would be not as strong. But in the same breath, I think that if you're super in tuned and able to connect with energy, then it might not even be any different. Because for me, if I do a mediumship reading with somebody, I genuinely don't feel like it's different if I'm in person or over Zoom.
Yeah, true. So Mia says her lower vibration energy absolutely affects my personal approach in readings. And she also asked a question: Are you able to apply the experience with your connections you make in mediumship to your personal life?
Oh, for sure. Well, first off, I love it whenever I get like a brand new client for like a regular just channeled reading. It's so wild. It'll be something I had just learned, just read about, just experienced, just healed from. And I'm like, fuck, I can speak on this to you because I literally just spoke on it for myself. So I understand it. I think a lot of the part of the feeling in the mediumship for me is they make me feel they'll give me examples of how I felt about somebody, and that's how I know how they felt about that person. Right. So like the relationship I had with my dad, I did a reading at an event a month ago, and I felt to 110% they have the exact same relationship that me and my dad had. So I immediately knew how the relationship was. Versus this weekend, I had a guy, and he's like, we had about as opposite of a relationship as you and your dad. And I thought, oh, because I know how that feels. So there was one young girl who had lost both her parents. And I just remember like talking to her. And I remember thinking everything I'm saying to this girl, I so desperately wish that somebody would have spoken over me when I was 26 and lost my first parent. So I feel like every time I connect with spirit, it makes me feel better just because being in that energy makes me feel better. I think taking yourself out of the human experience and like realizing what you're doing also reminds you of how much bigger and greater things are, which you always feel better when you do that. But I mean, half of the shit I say to other people, I really feel like it's stuff that I need to hear for myself or like a gentle reminder for myself. And it's just, I mean, it's so therapeutic. I went into my second day of readings this weekend and I said, Spirit, I want to do this so badly for people and show up. I said, but I'm concerned about my own energy. And like, I trust that like you'll put the people in front of me that won't drain or take away that really need to be there. And I was 5 minutes into my first reading and I felt fantastic the whole 4 hours I did readings. And then I got in the car to leave and I was like, oh, now I'm tired again. Because it like rejuvenates me. But I think that's probably why, I mean, maybe it's just me, but I think a lot of us little girls that were witchy always thought it'd be cool to grow up and be mediums because we watched all the movies and stuff. So wild to me. That's what I do for a living half the time. I'm like, what the fuck? But I think because grief was made such a huge impact in my life, my original thesis was how people use humor to cope with death in grad school. And I started experiencing grief at a very, very, very young age. And I had a lot of experiences with like even finding like dead animals, like my neighbors, my pets, like people, everything. It's funny, my therapist asked me that the other day. And I said, I think I got into it because I wanted to heal myself. And so everything we do for others, we tend to do for others because we wish it was done for us. And so I feel like every time I like can help somebody else, especially when it's a person like somebody who's lost a parent, especially a young person, I just feel like it inherently just heals me as I do it too. Yeah. The more you sit with spirit, the more it takes you out of human shit, which we all need to be taken out of our human shit. Sometimes I'm like, damn, I just talked to dead people for 2 days straight and I'm fucking worried about some red light pissing me off. This is so stupid. Like, puts it in perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going about an hour and 20 minutes. So I think that's a good ending point right now. Okay. So I say an ending point for now because I'm going to ask you to come back another time. So if you're up for it, if you want to deal with my ragtag bunch of people I have that I call family.
I really enjoy this. These are some really good questions. A lot of them like made me think too. It's neat. It's neat experience to kind of like I kind of unintentionally start channeling my answers without even realizing that you're doing it. So,
yeah. So I was just kind of saying, yay, thank you for coming on. Great show. So that's going to happen throughout a little while here while we're closing down. Again, thank you. Absolutely. Thank you, Mia, for coming on. I appreciate you being here. Do me a favor. Don't run away. I want to talk to you backstage once I close everything down. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. Thank you, Carolyn, for being on here. It was an absolute blast. I mean, the hour and 20 minutes flew by, and it was a lot of fantastic information. So a lot of people need to understand that the title of my show is Stuff I Never Learned from a School Book, simply because it's and this is why I always ask that first question: how did you start? What did you do? How did you get here? Because everyone is starting off from somewhere. And they need to know they're not alone. They have other people they can turn to, they can talk to, they can ask questions to. And that's what the show is designed for and built for, which is why we've gone from just paranormal to absolutely everything. So thank you for coming on and sharing your experiences. I greatly appreciate it. I loved seeing you last weekend. And don't run away. I'll be back to talk to you in a second.
Okay.
Remember, everybody, right down here on the bottom, Carolyn Ullrich, all of her information right here. Feel free to go out and take a look at it. It's a fantastic site because I went out and perused it myself when she sent it to me to make sure I can actually get around it all. So I like to explain to people how well their sites are put together, or if there's something separate they have to do in order to get into the site. Yours is fantastic, so it's very easy to understand.
I built it myself. I appreciate that.
Even I understood it, so absolutely. So thank you very much again, Mia. I appreciate that. Everyone, as Rosie says, have a great week. I will be right back with you.
Okay.
Thanks. All right, everyone, that's the show. As always, I'm going to have to take a second to find my own stuff to find out. There's my stuff on the bottom right there. If you like the show, as always, like, follow, share. I appreciate it. We are still trying to grow the community because I am trying to grow this out so everyone else has a place to kind of come to as well and ask questions and learn about. Next week, of course, I don't know who's on my show, so give me a second so I can look it up because that's just how I am, and my audience knows this by now. Let's see. Carolyn was on there. 30 September. Oh, my goodness. 30 September, I have on 3 ladies. They're all part of the same paranormal investigation group. They all have their own different abilities. One I've actually worked remote cases with a couple of times. She's been on my show once before, but we're also bringing on a couple other ladies that work with her in her show. So, or in their group. So come back, see us next Monday on the 30th. I will, of course, post an advertisement as I always do. And I will see everyone next week. Until then, stay safe. Take care of each other. Ask questions. All my stuff is down there. If for any reason you need anything, reach out to my email, stuffineverlearned@gmail.com. I will answer a question. If you have questions for Carolyn and you're just not emailing her, but you want to email me and have me send her a message, I am more than happy to do that too. All the stuff is recorded, so you can come back out and watch it all as well. Other than that, have a great night. Have a great week. Much love. I'll talk to y'all soon.